Hello, everyone. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Sarah.
And today we're going to tell you how we felt about Goosebumps. Goosebumps, Sarah.
I know.
Is this a thing you ever thought you'd see?
No. And actually, it's not a thing I ever wanted to see because I saw half of one episode of the TV show and changed the channel.
Yeah, the show wasn't great, but is it surprising how long it ran? Are you aware of this? 4 seasons it went.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that.
It had the #1 spot on Fox for at least 2 years, for Fox Kids, if not 3. It was incredibly popular.
Apparently nobody had taste, or people just liked the books that much.
They adapted nearly all of them.
Wow.
Well, and what I always thought, and I said this in my rewind when I did, well, actually, I'm sorry, that's coming out today. You might not have seen it yet, but one of the things that I mentioned in my rewind for Attack of the Mutant is that I think that show watched a lot more fun for those of us that had read the books and were watching the episodes that were adapted. Mm-hmm. Because, anytime I would watch one that I hadn't seen, I wasn't compelled by it. But when it was one that I had read, then I was more invested because I wanted to see just what they did with it. Sure. It's like, I think as adaptation, those books were so popular, I imagine a very large percentage of the kids that watched that show were doing precisely that.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that was a lot of the appeal of it. So anyway, Goosebumps it's a really interesting concept that they went with. And it sounds like kind of the obvious thing, but then when you see it, it is that, but then it's a little bit more interesting than I thought it would be. At least, I don't know, I think, where basically what we're doing is this sort of pseudo-meta thing where it's R.L. Stine as the main character. He ends up with sort of a character arc where we've got kid protagonist, but then R.L. Stine also kind of serves as a protagonist. And the idea is that for whatever reason, when he wrote his books, he was able to make them come alive with a magic typewriter. And he has to seal them all up in books that for some reason he doesn't destroy. I don't know why. And if you open them up with a key that he, of course, keeps right next to the books, then the monsters and nothing else from the books come alive and attack everything and destroy things and presumably kill people. And basically, what we're doing with the movie is we're making a story in the style of a Goosebumps story about the guy that wrote them, and that's my favorite thing about it.
Yeah, it's ingenious and obvious at the same time.
Yeah,
it's ingenious.
Yeah, I think that part of it's ingenious. The Jumanji bit, not so genius, right? Like the idea of let's put all the books on screen at once. That's not the interesting part for me. I mean, that's not the impressive part for me. Right, although I do think it's cooler to do this than to try to adapt one.
Yeah, you could try to adapt one. You could try to make up your own. You could say, okay, what were the most popular books? Let's merge them all.
Or maybe
let's try to make a continuity through all of them.
I could have seen a vignette film.
Yeah.
I could have seen doing something like what's that show? It's on the tip of my tongue with the Crypt Kid, Tales from the Crypt. I could have seen something like that because there's a Tales from the Crypt movie that's like several stories. If memory serves all. Yeah, I could have seen something like that maybe done. But this kind of is like a catch-all that in my mind watches really well for kids, but is as much for those of us that grew up with it as another. I talk about these all the time now because we're putting so many of them out. A nostalgic thing that's like a throwback thing for those of us that grew up with these.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of fun with the books you've read to go through the movie and say, oh, I read that book and that book and that book and recognize all the monsters.
Although we'll get there. That was one of my big problems with it.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'll get there. But structurally, it's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Because it is more or less a Goosebumps story.
Yeah.
Told with all the Goosebumps stuff in it.
All the twists and turns and all the... This comes out of nowhere.
But hilariously better written than some of them.
Yeah, thankfully.
Especially in dialogue.
And you get the twist at the end.
Yeah.
Which was lots of fun.
Yeah, no, I think so too. All right, well, let's find out what you thought of Goosebumps, and you can go ahead and flip your sign first.
Well, I thought...
This movie made me feel. Yes, I'm sorry. Wait, well, this is a movie about a format, and we don't even know our own. Go ahead.
It made me feel like I was watching a Goosebumps book play out on screen.
Yeah, which was the point.
Yes, absolutely. And they succeeded. Yeah, no, lots of fun. I'd say my favorite part was the dummy. Slappy. Yep. He was great. I remember the act of reading that one. I don't remember anything from it.
It's so funny because those were some of, if not the most popular ones next to Horrorland.
Yeah.
And I never read them.
Really?
The living dummy thing never really did anything for me. It seemed like one of those. I always read the ones that weren't obvious. Like I stayed away from the one about the werewolf and the one about the mummy. I stayed away from like your normal horror and Halloween iconography.
Sure.
The ones that appealed to me were the ones that seemed like new original concepts that you never heard of, but that you never really thought of.
Yeah.
Or at least things that, because some of those probably ended up actually being kind of derivative, but when I was a kid, I didn't know what they were, deriving.
What they were off of. Yeah.
So the dummy thing was like, well, I had seen, because I watched the Child's Play movies as a really young kid, weirdly, and it just seemed like a knockoff of that kind of stuff. And then I liked the ventriloquist from Batman, and I don't know,
Yeah.
I didn't need more of that.
I read the books based off of cover.
Which is what I always did with those too, but that was one that I was drawn to Say Cheese and Die.
That was the one at the top of my head when we were talking about that. That cover was just so compelling, and I also like
it's creepy.
Yeah, the one with the piano.
Piano lessons can be murder.
Yeah.
That was one I read. I was drawn to the Barking Ghost.
I didn't read that. I don't think I even saw that one.
Yeah. And I think, and I could be wrong, because, I haven't read a lot of these in a long time, and I've probably not even read a quarter of the Goosebumps books. I was a fan of the ones I read. I want to say that perhaps... actually, I'm sorry, we don't want to give away too many spoilers in this review. However, the movie has been out a week by the time this comes out, but there is a dog, but it's not the dog that was in Barking Ghost, but it floated.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was supposed to be a barking ghost dog or if it was something else, but then I don't remember if there was a poodle in that book, so that might have been the thing. Well, I guess I've given that away. There are stuff from the books in the movie, and that's one of them. Anyway.
Yeah. So...
sorry, go ahead.
So, yeah, I loved Slappy. I loved how they handled him. I thought he was lots of fun. He had lots of good lines. I thought his part of the plot was just great. Thing I didn't like so much. Okay, they gave everyone in the movie a relationship, basically.
You mean romantic relationship?
A romantic relationship.
Sure.
And normally I don't like that at all. But there was really
Which is amusing because Goosebumps almost never did.
Yeah. So at first I was like, I'm not sure. That guy has a relationship. This one's kind of hooking up. Like, what's going on with that? But on the other hand, I liked almost all of them. I thought they were all handled well.
Especially the main one.
They weren't really distracting. Some of them were kind of endearing.
Yeah.
The one I didn't think worked at all was Zach's mom.
No,
where
me neither. But
the
luckily,
teacher out of nowhere just kind of hits on her and is lame.
But of the three, that was the one that was most in the background, and
yeah, absolutely.
It's a footnote. You could go through the movie, leave, and forget that even happened.
But I didn't. So that was the one thing that irked me, and nothing else in the movie really kind of jumped out at me and made me raise an eyebrow, but that one did.
Let me ask you this question. Did any of the logic issues bug you, or should we not allow them to because it's a Goosebumps story? That's the thing.
What logic
where
issues?
I keep going back and forth on this in my head, and I don't want to take this movie too seriously. But hear me out. This is in the first act. I don't feel like I'm giving too much away. We know that Slappy's all over the advertising. We know he's in the movie. We just talked about him. Something happens where one of the books gets open, and we saw this in the trailer. One of the books gets open, and we find out that monsters can come out from it, and something happens that knocks all the books onto the floor, and then all of a sudden Slappy escapes.
Yeah,
I don't understand that.
I think what they were going for
was it that the lock got broke.
The lock got broken because it wasn't.
They didn't shoot that right.
It didn't or at just least fall off.
I've seen
the
it
shelf.
the one time, but the book they didn't shoot it right.
It didn't just fall off the shelf. It got like smashed.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I thought it just kind of fell off and then it opened, and I was like, why did it open? But I guess if the lockup broke. And then, like I said, my biggest question through the whole movie is, why did he keep the manuscripts?
Yeah.
And I felt like you could have easily had that come from a character place. And
they just never even
talk about it. And again, if you've not seen the movie, you might be surprised that I'm even suggesting that this is not me not looking at the movie on its own terms. There is a little bit of character stuff for R.L. Stine. It's not super deep or anything.
Yeah.
But his writing the Goosebumps books in the first place comes from an insecure place. It's a movie about being lonely and about socially awkward kids, and we have a number of socially awkward people in the movie that all parallel each other.
Name somebody who's not socially awkward in this. Who's the main character?
The main kid. The main kid is not socially awkward. There's kind of a point being made there, I think.
That's true. Everyone else is.
And I liked that about it. He was one of R.L. Stine's more typical like confident, sure of himself, go get him kind of protagonists. And if anything at all about this cartoonish characterization of Stine in the movie is to be believed, that was probably R.L. Stine writing characters that were more like what he wished he was as a kid.
Yeah.
And there were some socially awkward kids in his books, but then sometimes you'd have like the nerdy kid that wasn't that was typical in a book kind of way, but all the you look at the one for, because again I just got done working on this. You look at the kid from Attack of the Mutant, and he's the nerdy kid that loves comics, but he ignores everyone that makes fun of him about it. He just doesn't even care. And that might have come from... All I'm saying is, R.L. Stine does seem to have, in the movie, this is a fictionalization of a real person, so I have to make the distinction. The fictionalized R.L. Stine has this romanticism in the movie about the characters he's created and about these worlds, and there are moments where he kind of loses his perspective and objectivity a little bit and goes, "Ooh, that's a cool idea. Oh wait, I'm running for my life," and I really like that.
Yeah.
But so the fact that he saved the manuscripts and they could at any time, especially because he's so eccentric, he just leaves the key right next to the books. I thought that was hysterical.
Yeah.
Couldn't that have come from a character place?
Well,
we should have talked about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, within the context of the movie, we should have talked about that.
Yeah, but nonetheless, I thought it played out really well, and I wasn't too distracted by that.
Fair enough. I was. That distracted me just a little bit. Anyway, Sarah, this movie, similarly to yours, made me feel like I was 12 years old seeing a Goosebumps movie made in 1996, and it was everything I would have wanted then.
Yeah.
Let's go to a few more good things first, and I've already said some of my piece, so I'll go through this real quick. Best thing about the whole movie is Jack Black. He nails it. He's fantastic. He is a perfect cartoon characterization of that guy. And I read an interview with R.L. Stine talking about he seemed glowing.
Yeah.
about this movie and it being made, and he was really excited about just how many lawn gnomes they put in the movie, and I mean and
it was a lot.
And it was just really funny, and I got the sense from that interview that he was really happy with the pick of Jack Black, and Jack Black totally gets this material.
Oh, yeah.
He hams it up in just the right way. He's hilarious. I love Jack Black.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen him in much, but
a couple things.
I've always really liked him.
Yeah.
And what's great about Jack Black is that he's really good at straddling the fence. He can do more adult, cruder comedies. Mm-hmm. If he does a thing that's for kids, he gets it.
Yeah.
I've heard some people, this is not mine, I'm not taking credit for this, I've heard people say, I think maybe even somebody in a comment from one of our videos, that this is what Pixels should have been. And I 100% agree with that. That is the difference between Adam Sandler and Jack Black.
Yeah.
Is that Jack Black does a thing that's clearly supposed to be a family movie, a family-friendly kind of thing. And again, Pixels is a tough one because it's old video games, and even though the video games themselves are mostly wholesome, maybe entirely all of them wholesome, you still, I think...
Raunchy Pac-Man.
You still could make a raunchy movie for the adults that played them and make it clear that's what it was.
Yes.
But I still can't decide if, and I don't mean to talk about that movie too much, I still can't decide if the advertising was trying to trick us, or if that movie did not understand that it wasn't for kids.
Yeah.
This is, I completely agree now that I've seen it, what that should have been.
Yeah.
And it is in a similar vein, of course, in that we're taking all of them and we're throwing them on screen together. Yeah. I do think it has one of the big problems that Pixels had, and I'll get to that in a second, but it doesn't kill it by any stretch of the imagination. Dialogue was much cleverer than I expected it to be, especially at the beginning. I thought that the first 15 minutes of the screenplay were just really, really good.
Yeah.
And after a while, it started to lose some of that mojo for me, just in the in the sharp-wittedness of the writing. But I think maybe it was an adjustment I made where I got used to it, and then I wasn't as impressed with it anymore because I expected it to be far more generic than it was. And those characters, though kind of typical, had a much more personality than I thought they would, and hilariously more personality than your average protagonist in a Goosebumps
This
book.
is true. I thought it was actually pretty consistent throughout.
Okay.
But
Special effects were kind of hit and miss, but I thought that, but I liked a lot of the monster designs. Some of them, especially like the werewolf, were legitimately kind of creepy looking. And I don't mean that there's anything in the movie that's actually scary, but it felt like, what a 12, 13-year-old, at least in my day, in the 90s when these things were coming out. And again, did this not feel like a consummate 90s movie? It did not feel like it came out this year. It felt like it came out 20 years ago.
Agree with that,
and I really liked that about it. I once again, the other, I guess the tied thing for Jack Black being a good thing is the whole Goosebumps book structure of it. I like that it's about writing. And I thought that was kind of fun. The stuff about Stephen King got me. That was hysterical.
Yeah.
Let me talk about some things that I missed, and some things that didn't work for me. It was missing many of my favorites. Where was the Horrorland stuff? Horrorland is like the most popular thing in Goosebumps. Besides maybe Slappy. Where was it?
You have that theme park.
There's a carnival, but that doesn't count. That's not enough.
But you have the mirrors thing.
Okay, but you don't have the monsters from Horrorland. Like, where were there are very specific looking monsters from Horrorland that I kind of expected to see, and they weren't there. Like the big blue horn guys. Like, where were they? And they might have been in one of those big wide shots. But that was my other problem, is that there were several monsters that you would have to pause the screen to even notice they were there. Like, it bugged me that you got to the closing credits, and there's a and in the closing credits, when they do kind of some cartoon versions of some of those things, and they show you the jack-o'-lantern like really huge, and if you blink, you missed the jack-o'-lantern entirely. I don't even know if you saw it.
I didn't see that one.
It's in there, but you're making my point for me.
Right, but I just figured I'd watch the movie again.
Yeah, but my point is, that was the thing I didn't like about Pixels, is that they back-ended a lot of the video games, where it was like they had 2 or 3 token ones that kind of took over, and then at the end, they just lumped everything else together and threw it all on screen at one time. And it makes for a cool money shot, I guess, but you want at least some more insert shots of some of that stuff. I just felt like overall, and this might sound like a nitpick, it's not. I feel like overall, we could have been a little bit more clever in the way that they were integrated. Like we could have had, and I didn't mind the slow start, because again, paced like a Goosebumps book. That was okay for, like, it takes about half an hour before any of this stuff gets going. I'm fine with that. I was surprised that I was, but I feel like that's part of the structure of this, like, pseudo horror, teen book thing, structure. But then after that, we spent a long time with one, and then Slappy is kind of taking over, and he's got his master plan, and then everything else just follows him. And I just would have liked some more moments for some of those things. That was kind of my big complaint.
I don't know. I thought we got a lot of them. I mean,
but kind of superficially. I just felt like there was time to spend more time with some of them.
Maybe just different shots, a few more insert shots, like you said, thrown in of, okay, well, here's a little bit more of the Mummy, or here's a little bit
I just
more
felt like we stretched so long with certain, like, specific monsters that we could have. I felt like we could have had, like, maybe more scenes and just shorter scenes.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the insert shots that they did give were taken up by the ghouls.
Yeah, but then might that have messed with the pacing of the kind of structure they were doing? So I don't know. Maybe you can't do that, but I don't know. That was the thing. This is a me thing. I missed the TV theme. I thought that it would have fit this material perfectly. And when the movie opened, I kind of and it was the Danny Elfman score. Don't think it's one of his better scores.
Yeah.
And some of it was cool, but I got to the end, and when it said Danny Elfman on screen, I went, why couldn't he have integrated some of that score?
Yeah.
That would have been a big deal for some of the fans. So I kind of missed that. I don't know if you remember the TV theme.
I don't.
I will play it for you right after this, and it will be stuck in your head for a week.
Okay.
I missed that.
Yeah.
Other than that, though, I really liked it.
Yeah.
Again, there's some kind of typical stuff, but typical in the right kinds of ways is what's kind of weird about it. You can't hold it to the same standards that you do everything.
They set out to make a Goosebumps book.
That's it.
And so that's what they did. And so it's campy and it's silly and
modern
it's not
literary standards.
necessarily logical.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's the nostalgia fest that we went in for.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. But I also think that it appeals just fine for kids of now.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, and I like that I was able to take my 5-year-old. I mean, some people when the trailer came out were like, "Oh, okay, so you're not even going to try to make it scary." I'm like, Goosebumps was never really scary. I mean, it was maybe when we were kids reading it, and I feel like kids now are probably a lot of them more desensitized than we were. And so I think that some of that stuff was creepier in the mid-90s in a way that it wouldn't be now to kids the way they're raised now, and with the kinds of movies and TV shows that are more accepted for them at this point. I just feel like that's changed a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's just my opinion. I mean, not everybody's going to agree with that, but I think that's changed a bit.
Yeah.
And R.L. Stine always says in interviews that this is another thing he said in that interview that I read, that horror was never fun. It was never scary for him. It was always funny. Like horror is comedy for R.L. Stine.
Yeah.
So they made a comedy.
Yeah.
Well, that's, I mean, like the movie they made, like if you don't like that they didn't try to make it scarier, blame R.L. Stine, because they made the movie he would have wanted.
Yeah. Well, and apparently he liked it.
Yeah, and he liked it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, that's great.
So, I don't know. Overall, I'm pretty happy with him.
Yeah, me too. In fact, I'm feeling it.
Anything else you wanted to say?
Anything
else you want to talk about?
No.
Do you think this is a thing that should get another one? I mean, I feel like it's really... It's a decent standalone thing. I don't know that I want to see more.
Yeah, it's so good by its... They made the consummate Goosebumps movie, and I'm not sure I want to see another one. I mean, if someone made one down the road and it was just as good or better than this one, I could be won over. But if someone tomorrow said, hey, this one did so well, we're making a sequel, I would not be happy. Just because I don't want to see this franchised out, and I don't want to see it... Let's just make a bunch of money and put bad things on screen.
Yeah, one thing, if you were going to do any more, and it's doing okay at the box office.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like blowing people away, but like it's going to more than make its money back. Yeah. I think it did like 23, 24 opening weekend. That's not bad for a thing like this. Yeah. And clearly not a giant budget. So I mean, it's going to do fine. If you were going to do another one, you know what I did? This is neither here nor there. You know what I would do with it? I would bring Jack Black back for just a cameo at the beginning, maybe even bookend it. And what I would do is I would have Jack Black going to see the Goosebumps movie, and it would be an actual adaptation of one of the books, but set in this universe. But a movie that they made in that universe, and then we get to see that movie. So it would be, so you would tie it to this, but then you do an adaptation, and it would be Horrorland. So you do like One Day at Horrorland, the movie bookended with Jack Black in this universe. They finally made a movie of one of my books. Yeah. That's what I would do with it.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm just saying, I think there are things you could do without having to do a sequel to this.
Yeah.
And without having to go to like dumb prequel territory or anything like that.
Oh man, that would be horrible.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah.
I think it would also be really amusing if somebody made a biopic, like an actual biopic now of R.L. Stine. Like a really serious R.L. Stine biopic. I don't think that should happen, but...
This is the biopic.
Yes. Yeah, this is what really happened.
Yes.
In that tiny town.
Only the needle has been changed to protect the record.
All right, this is always for watching how we felt about, and we'll be with you again sometime. I know it's been a while since we've done one of these. I'm having a hard time finding the time to go to the theater, but there is a lot of stuff. Frankly, there's a couple things out right now that I want to go see. And do one of these on, and there are definitely some things down the road that are coming that we'll do one of these for. We'll probably do one on the Peanuts movie. We'll probably do one for Spectre, and obviously, Star Wars when that happens in December. So anyway, everybody, thanks for watching. We sure appreciate it. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Sarah.
See you again next time.